The story of Jacob in the Holy Bible and Holy Quran and the Holy Torah. Follow us to learn more. Jacob and Esau were twin brothers born to Isaac and Rebekah. The Bible tells us that they struggled together in Rebekah's womb.
A foreshadowing of their troubled relationship. Esau was born first and thereby became legal heir to the family birthright, which included, among other things, being heir to the covenant between God and Abraham. This birthright was a link in the line of descent through which the promised Messiah was to come.
In contrast with Esau, who was a skillful hunter and his father's favorite, Jacob was a plain man, dwelling in tents and his mother's favorite. The Hebrew word for plain is the same word translated in other scripture as perfect, upright, undefiled. So the word plain refers to Jacob's character as a man of God. God records his highest praise and blessing for Jacob. The Lord hath chosen Jacob unto himself. Esau came from the field, and he was faint, and Esau said to Jacob, Feed me with that same red pottage, still, for I am faint. Knowing the character of his brother, Jacob replied, Sell me this day thy birthright. 25 hours 31 minutes. Esau had no interest in spiritual things, so he agreed, saying, I am at the point, about, to die, and what profit shall this birthright do to me? Esau could not have been at the point to die by missing one meal, but he revealed how worthless he considered the birthright. When Isaac was close to death, it became time to give Esau his blessings. Isaac asked Esau to go hunt for a special meal, after which he would pass the blessing. Rebekah overheard and helped Jacob disguise himself as Esau and bring Isaac the meal instead while his brother was still hunting. Because Isaac had poor sight, he was tricked into giving the blessing to Jacob. Esau was enraged and Jacob had to run away to save his life.
The writer of Hebrews referred to Esau as a profane, godless person before their births. God knew that Esau's descendants would become enemies of Israel for generations to come, and he knew Jacob was a man of integrity. He had preordained that Jacob would be in the lineage of Jesus.
According to the book of Genesis, Jacob was the third Hebrew progenitor with whom God made a covenant. He is the son of Isaac and Rebekah, the grandson of Abraham, Sarah and Bethuel, the nephew of Ishmael, and the younger twin brother of Esau. Jacob had 12 sons and at least one daughter, by his 2 wives, Leah and Rachel, and by their handmaidens Bilhah and Zilpah. Jacob forces Esau, a hunter, into selling him his birthright for a bowl of lentil soup. Years later, at Rebekah's urging, Jacob pretends to be Esau and tricks Isaac into giving him Esau's firstborn blessing, then flees to live with his uncle Laban before Esau can respond.
On his journey, Jacob has a dream in which angels go up and down a ladder connecting earth to heaven. God appears before Jacob and renews the covenant that God had made with Abraham. At Laban's, Jacob goes from deceiver to deceived. In another case of one sibling posing as another, Laban promises that after 7 years of labor Jacob can marry Laban's daughter Rachel. Instead, Laban hides his other daughter, Leah, under the bridal veil, thus tricking Jacob into marrying the wrong sister. Laban then makes Jacob work another 7 years before letting him marry Rachel. Jacob also acquires 2 handmaids, sometimes referred to as concubines, who bear some of his children. Years later, Jacob peacefully reunites with Esau after wrestling with an angel and having his name changed to Israel, a name that means wrestle with God. However, the sibling conflict in Jacob's relationship to Esau, as well as the conflict in Rachel's relationship to Leah, is echoed in the relationships among Jacob's own children. Jacob favors his son Joseph, making the other sons so jealous that they sell Joseph into slavery and lie to Jacob about it. Joseph's own adventures in Egypt, in which he ultimately succeeds in becoming the Pharaoh's prime minister and forgiving the brothers, conclude with his reunion with Jacob, who blesses Joseph's sons, but dies soon afterward. Joseph and his brothers have Jacob buried in Hebron, at his request. He is acknowledged as a patriarch of Islam. Muslims believe that he preached the same monotheistic faith as did his forefathers, Abraham, Ibrahim, Isaac, Ishaq, and Ismail. Jacob is mentioned 16 times in the Quran. 2 further references to Israel are believed to be mentioned of. The Bible and the Quran have a lot more in common than most people realize, including the story of Joseph, a soap opera-like tale of betrayal, adultery, sibling rivalry, and mistaken identity all rolled into one. Chapter 12 of the Quran is titled Joseph, and it contains the Islamic account of the story of Joseph that appears in Jinn 3750. About 100 verses long, the story takes up almost the entirety of the chapter. It is the longest single story in the Quran.
The Quran's version has the same characters as the Bible's, and the two texts share the same outline, with both describing Joseph's brothers abandoning him in a pit, his being taken to Egypt and thrown into prison before rising to a position of authority in Pharaoh's court, and his eventual reunion with his father Jacob and his brothers. As is typical of biblical traditions found in the Quran, the Islamic text has a briefer version of events, and it presents them in a way that supports Islamic belief and theology. The most significant difference between the two accounts is the more active role God plays in the Quran as compared to Genesis. The deity is mentioned several times in the biblical account but does not have the level of involvement in the story that is found in the Quran. In moments of crisis, the characters in the Quran version rely upon God to come to their assistance. God reassures Joseph, after his brothers throw him into the pit,